Akira Toriyama actually never intended to become a manga artist. From Nagoya, he has a younger sister and was raised by rather cheerful parents. After graduating from an industrial high school, he went to work for a design company. However, as he started to feel, no, I can't keep doing this. I can't spend all my time on lettering, his motivation waned, and he ended up leaving the company around the age of 23. After that, he heard he could enter for a manga magazine's something award and thought, oh, manga. He started drawing manga. Even though he had never read a manga before. That's still quite crazy, isn't it? He started drawing comics when he was about 23 years old.
So he did the composition and drafting himself?
He is very good at it. He also has a good sense of design and is not negatively influenced by the comics of that time because he doesn't read them. If it had been someone who had been reading comics all along, their work would likely have reflected the current comic styles. However, since it was someone completely uninfluenced by existing trends who suddenly started drawing, the result was something entirely new and unlike anything seen before. He submitted it to Shonen magazine and other magazines, but it was rejected. Then, when he submitted his work to Jump, his life changed. It was there that Akira Toriyama met the famous Toriyama. Toriyama is Dr. Mashirito. He served as the model for the villain character in Dr. Slump Arelican. Then Toriyama suggested to Toriyama that they work together, and the miraculous story began. The fact is that Toriyama is quite a genius editor. He discovered not only Akira Toriyama, but also Masakazu Katsura, who was one of the people working behind the scenes to launch the popular game Dragon Quest. And he is the creator of many mega content projects. In other words, he was a fixer and innovator, but he was also a strict person who rejected all kinds of ideas without mercy. That is why even this drawing was referred to as rejected. Toriyama told Toriyama in an interview, "No matter what I draw, it is always rejected." However, Toriyama said the following: "It normally takes 3 years to train a manga artist and help them debut." So Akira Toriyama underwent rigorously, trained under Toriyama for 3 years, starting in 1977. This is also a famous story. Akira Toriyama had 500 pages rejected in 1 year. The rejections would fill 2 or 3 books. What makes this even more challenging is that he draws extremely meticulously. The life of this Dr. Masuto is also interesting. 3 years older than Toriyama, he was born in 1952. This is really interesting, right? I investigated the generation born in 1952 and 1955. They are staunchly referred to as the Sharake generation. They are the generation that said, "The world is whatever," during the age of fervent student movements. This marked the beginning of a cool, detached mindset, and they were a generation deeply influenced by the societal atmosphere of the time. The preceding generation was still engaged in politics, driven by passion and struggle, but the generation after that was more interested in having fun. This gave rise to an era where style was everything. Owning a car was essential, and their focus revolved almost entirely around girls. In Japan, this is called the bubble era. They were a generation that chose to set aside thoughts about life and society. Focusing instead on the girl in front of them, they began expressing desires to ride motorcycles, drive cars, and go surfing. Thanks to Toriyama, Dr. Slump was born. Another famous story is that of Shinji Haramatsu, who drew Detective Doberman. There was a guy who drew a little 70s test action manga called Doberman Detective, and the beautiful woman he drew was Hosomote. Although Toriyama was still at a young age, he said the following to the older Haramatsus: "These outdated drawings won't sell." He then brought a photo of Eiku Sakakibara, a popular idol of the era, and said, "Make it look like this." Haramatsu shifted from drawing slender beauties to fuller-figured characters, which turned him into a successful manga artist. This saved Haramatsu's life as a manga artist. Toriyama was known for driving such transformations in many areas. Interestingly, Akira Toriyama doesn't like to draw relationships with girls. In fact, he is the kind of person who doesn't want to draw anything romantic at all. Toriyama is married to a female manga artist called Manamikachi. When he found out that there was another manga artist from Nagoya who also draws manga, he decided to attend those gatherings as well. His aim was to meet a woman who draws manga in Nagoya. He met the woman, and they went on to get married. This was actually the first time he had talked to a girl. He said this in a TV interview in a program called Tetsuko's room. That is the kind of person he is.
Would he has called himself a nerd?
He is a nerd among nerds. But at that time, the Japanese word for nerd did not exist. Toriyama is a plastic modeler. Look at this. It's obvious at a glance. Everyone in Japan knows that Akira Toriyama's drawings are amazing, right?
Yes, they are amazing.
When this art book came out during the Arlequin era, it completely blew everyone away. It was the kind of release that made people think, is this for real?
Despite being a drawing, it seems to be alive.
Even though it was a manga, the cover showcased incredibly skilled color illustrations and artwork that seemed almost unreal. People were astonished. How could such a genius exist on Earth? Akira Toriyama's artwork has several clear influences. Take a good look at this. It is obvious. Atom's hairstyle and Goku's early hairstyle are remarkably similar, don't you think? Atom was originally modeled after Mickey Mouse. Toriyama dedicated countless hours to replicating Tezuka Osamu's manga. He especially copied a lot of the robots that appeared in Atom. So Atom's robots blended with mechanical designs inspired by Star Wars. This culminated in Akira Toriyama's style. At that time, his manga even featured real-life cars that people dreamed of owning. Since he didn't have money at home and couldn't buy the things he wanted, he poured his energy into drawing them instead. He would draw anything he wanted to draw. He did this rigorously. If he desired a specific car, he would draw it with incredible realism, capturing every detail. It's also said that he obsessively drew scenes from 101 Dalmatians. What I am trying to say is that Toriyama started out as a Disney artist. Osamu Tezuka also started out with Disney Pictures. These are three-dimensional artists. Disney, with its focus on animation, has always created artwork with a strong sense of 3D from the outset. But if you trace the origin of manga, it is derived from ukiyo pictures. This means that Japanese manga is primarily rooted in two-dimensional designs, with many elements that don't translate well into 3D. Well, that is the beauty of Japanese manga. But Toriyama is particularly good at drawing in 3D. Because he influenced by Disney at a fundamental level. Of course, that's not everything. Another major inspiration comes from American illustrators. If you take a look at this, it's immediately apparent. Norman Rockwell, the way Rockwell balanced loosely drawn elements with meticulously detailed ones, combined with the distinctive atmosphere of his work, is truly remarkable. His art celebrates and embodies the charm of old, nostalgic America. During the 1980s, there was a revival of 50s culture, and Akira Toriyama rose to prominence. It was an era where people admired the golden age of America. It was a time when everyone was a young American. It is understandable that he was greatly influenced by something like Rockwell, who was a representative of that era. Another thing is that Rockwell was good at drawing various things, but particularly, he had an impressive talent for mechanical designs. Seeing creations like his, it's impossible not to think, that's so Toriyama. That's not all. On the other hand, it is also well known that Toriyama is very proficient at creating plastic models. He is also a regular contestant in plastic modeling contests. Even though he was active as a professional manga artist, he entered model magazine contests under the name Akira Toriyama. For him, people and machines are a set. That's why I believe this person had a strong desire to travel, or he had the compulsion to go somewhere on a motorcycle. In Dragon Ball, there's a clear sense of longing to explore the farthest reaches of the world. Given that they were part of a generation that had a passion for travel, this seems quite likely. To conclude, Toriyama's passion for models is so intense that the mechas his characters ride often get turned into plastic models. That is because he has the advanced skills necessary to draw characters that can be created in 3D. Such a level of skill was quite uncommon among manga artists at the time. Previously, the style was more rugged, with the era being largely dominated by artists from the Gikuga tradition. That is why his arrival was nothing short of groundbreaking. But there is another person, Katsuhiro Otomo, who drew Akira, also appeared during this period. This genius artist, Akira Toriyama and Torishima, who discovered him, are the Toritori Ju. I think the two of them are very similar. They are obviously very similar. Jobs and Wozniak. Two Steves, right? One was an engineer and just did what he was told. The other one tried to dream and conquer the world. This doctor Masuto is the villain in Dr. Slump. Toriyama told Akira Toriyama that he should draw a villain he didn't like, and this is what Toriyama drew. It's a great episode, and I think they must have had a good relationship to be able to produce this. There is even a photo of the two of them together. The dry demeanor that Toriyama means he never wanted to conquer the world. All he really wants to do is to make models. I think he just wanted to draw whatever he wanted, make models, and live in his own little world. But Toriyama said, no, that's not enough. Let's conquer the world. And from that, such a miracle was born. Toriyama is from Nagoya, right? The city where Toyota was born. He liked models and mechas. And for him that was enough. But he got on board a ship with a man from Niigata who wanted to conquer the world. Toriyama graduated from Keio University, one of the most famous universities in Japan. Actually, he never thought of doing manga-related work. He intended to enter the world of literature. That's why he mocked the idea of doing manga. He thought, I don't know anything about manga, but he realized early on that he had no talent as a creator. With that in mind, he decided to take on a supporting role, joined Shueisha, and was assigned to Weekly Shonen Jump. From that point, he came to analyze manga thoroughly. Even though he had never read manga before, he wondered what made Tetsuya Chiba's manga so easy to read, and analyzed everything in detail starting with the panel layout. Against this background, he could say, draw the manga just like I told you. In any case, the scary thing is that they were both still in their 20s at the time of Dr. Slump.
Are you from Niigata?
Yes, Niigata Prefecture produces a lot of manga artists, like Rumiko Takahashi. It is a manga kingdom.
Niigata is amazing that way.
As for Dragon Ball, the story starts in the middle, a tale called Tenkichi Budokai, and after that, a survey of readers called the Popularity Poll was held. That survey was conducted every week. Toriyama consistently held the unshakable #1 position in that survey until the very end. From an analysis of that questionnaire, a certain classic jump pattern was created.
Did that come from Toriyama?
Yes, it was Toriyama's work. The pattern is such that they fight, a stronger opponent emerges, and the battles continue repeatedly. If you keep doing that for a long time, it becomes saturated. That became the foundation of the JUMP.
Could you describe the survey in more detail? What kind of impact does it have? I would also like to hear how hard it is.
It was Jump's way of having readers fill out a questionnaire every week, and then the manga that came out on top would be brought up more and more. This enabled Shonen Jump to increase the circulation of the magazine. However, one big problem remained. Even if a manga is rated highly in a survey, does that necessarily make it an interesting manga? Actually, that was not always the case. There is a difference between a manga that is interesting from the manga artist's point of view and a manga that is interesting from the reader's point of view. However, Jump is a survey-based magazine. Ultimately, because Toriyama Sensei consistently held the top spot in surveys, the editors wouldn't allow him to end the manga on his own terms.
This meant the story became more and more saturated.
Even so, I think he endured significant frustration over being unable to stop creating manga.
Did Mr. Toriyama deliberately continue with DB?
To be honest, he wanted to quit, but he couldn't.
The questionnaire survey was a simple but cruel system. It asked the respondents to choose 3 things they enjoyed and 3 things they didn't. If a manga was chosen as one of the 3 most boring, it would be discontinued. As a result, Jump manga became more and more about excitement and fun, and as a result, complex and thoughtful manga were eliminated. That was a big problem. Manga artists are told by their editors to make their work easy to understand. In any case, this was also a problem. Toriyama is a plastic modeler. The most obvious thing is the way he draws the mouth. Why is it so three-dimensional even though it's deformed?
It's really good.
Why would someone who is such an absurdly good drawer draw something like Dragon Ball? Toriyama chose to discard something. I think he realized, this is not the charm of Dragon Ball. I think that's why he transitioned his energy to a different place. On the other hand, the secret coolness that was fostered in Jump is interesting. At first glance, there are battles between men and passionate friendships. But there is a void in people's eyes. I feel it's like Dragon Ball. Why is there no light in their eyes? Toriyama-san has abandoned something related to drawing here. At the time of our election, Things were still sparkling, but because he is extremely talented, he decided to stop drawing. I see. That's often the way with Gurus. He started to omit details. He even stopped supplying tones to the sky, and it becomes increasingly white. The sky stops being toned, and it gets whiter and whiter. Like a Seiyan, there is such a lineage, and he inherited the technique in the 2000s of not putting emotion in the eyes. Ichiro Oda, in the 2000s, a strange balance of a passionate story but emptiness in the eyes began to appear. As I read Dragon Ball, I can clearly see as a manga artist where the editor intervened to make changes here and there. Because of this, the fundamental charm Toriyama originally brought to the series seems to have shifted into something else. It feels as though there are moments where Toriyama had to reluctantly let go of parts of himself that were pieces of his very essence, a part of himself. As a fellow manga artist, I can deeply sense the pain he must have experienced, sacrificing parts of himself to keep drawing. That's why Dragon Ball feels like a real struggle. It's almost unbearably painful, really. And yet, despite all that, I can somewhat understand why Toriyama-san continued to draw Dragon Ball. I'll delve into that further in the second half exclusive to premium members.